Jeremy today's day 380 of reading, taking Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Let's get started. We're currently on page 187. Let's go. Does it, do anything? He asked. Loads of stuff, said Neville proudly. It's got an amazing defense mechanism. Hold Trevor for me. He dumped the toad into Harry's lap and took a quill from his school bag. Luna Lovegood's popping eyes appeared over the top of her upside-down magazine again, watching what Neville was doing. Neville held the Mimbleless Mimbletonia up to his eyes, his tongue between his teeth, chose a spot, and gave the plant a sharp prod with the tip of his quill. Liquid squirted from every boil in the plant, thick, stinking, dark green jets of it. They hit the ceiling, the windows, and spattered Luna Lovegood's magazine. Ginny, who had flung her arms up in front of her face just in time, merely looked as though she were wearing a slimy green hat. But Harry, whose hands had been busy preventing the escape of Trevor, received a faceful. It smelled like rancid manure. Neville, whose face and torso were also drenched, shook his head to get the worst out of his eyes. Sorry, he gasped. I haven't tried that before. Didn't realize it would be quite so. Don't worry, though. Stink sap's not poisonous, he added nervously, as Harry spat a mouthful onto the floor. Oh, hello, Harry, said a nervous voice. Bad time? Harry wiped the lenses of his glasses with his Trevor-free hand. A very pretty girl with long, shiny black hair was standing in the doorway smiling at him. Cho Chang, the seeker on the Ravenclaw Quidditch team. Oh, hi, said Harry blankly. Said Cho. Well, just thought I'd say hello. Bye then. She closed the door again, rather pink in the face, and departed. Harry slumped back in his seat and groaned. He would have liked Cho to discover him sitting with a group of very cool people laughing their heads off at a joke he had just told. He would not have chosen to be sitting with Neville and Loony Lovegood, clutching a toad and dripping in stink sap. Never mind, said Ginny bracingly. Look, we can get rid of all of this easily. She pulled out her wand. Scorgiffy. The stink sap vanished. Sorry, said Neville again in a small voice. Ron and Hermione did not turn up for nearly an hour, by which time the food trolley had already gone by. Harry, Ginny, and Neville had finished their pumpkin pasties and were busy swapping chocolate frog cards when the compartment door slid open and they walked in, accompanied by Crookshanks and a shrilly hooting Pigwidgeon in his cage. I'm starving, said Ron, stowing Pigwidgeon next to Hedwig, grabbing a chocolate frog from Harry and throwing himself into the seat next to him. He ripped open the wrapper, bit off the frog's head, and leaned back with his eyes closed as though he had had a very exhausting morning. Well, there are 2 fifth-year prefects from each house, said Hermione, looking thoroughly disgruntled as she took her seat. A boy and a girl from each. And guess who's a Slytherin prefect, said Ron, still with his eyes closed. Malfoy, replied Harry at once, his worst fear confirmed. Course, said Ron bitterly, stuffing the rest of the frog into his mouth and taking another. And that complete cow Pansy Parkinson, said Hermione viciously. How's she got to be a prefect when she's thicker than a concussed troll? Who's Hufflepuff? Harry asked. Ernie Macmillan and Hannah Abbott, said Ron thickly. And Anthony Goldstein and Padma Patil for Ravenclaw, said Hermione. You went to the Yule Ball with Padma Patil, said a vague voice. Everyone turned to look at Luna Lovegood, who was gazing unblinkingly at Ron over the top of the quibbler. He swallowed his mouthful of frog. Yeah, I know I did, he said, looking mildly surprised. She didn't enjoy it very much, Luna informed him. She doesn't think you treated her very well, because you wouldn't dance with her. I don't think I'd have minded, she added thoughtfully. I don't like dancing very much. She retreated behind the quibbler again. Ron stared at the cover with his mouth hanging open for a few seconds, then looked around at Ginny for some kind of explanation. But Ginny had stuffed her knuckles in her mouth to stop herself giggling. Ron shook his head, bemused, then checked his watch. "We're supposed to patrol the corridors every so often," he told Harry and Neville, "and we can give out punishments if people are misbehaving. I can't wait to get Crabbe and Goyle for something." "You're not supposed to abuse your position, Ron," said Hermione sharply. "Yeah, right, because Malfoy won't abuse it at all," said Ron sarcastically. "So you're going to descend to his level?" "No, I'm just going to make sure I get his mates before he gets mine." "For heaven's sake, Ron, I'll make Goyle do lines. It'll kill him. He hates writing," said Ron happily. He lowered his voice to Goyle's low grunt and, screwing up his face in a pained concentration, mimed writing in midair. "I must not look like a baboon's backside." Everyone laughed, but nobody laughed harder than Luna Lovegood. She let out a scream of mirth that caused Hedwig to wake up and flap her wings indignantly and Crookshanks to leap up into the luggage rack, hissing. She laughed so hard that her magazine slipped out of her grasp, slid down her legs, and onto the floor. "That was funny!" Her prominent eyes swam with tears as she gasped for breath, staring at Ron. Utterly nonplussed, he looked around at the others, who were now laughing at the expression on Ron's face and at the ludicrously prolonged laughter of Luna Lovegood, who was rocking backward and forward, clutching her sides. "Are you taking the mickey?" said Ron, frowning at her. "Baboon's backside," she choked, holding her ribs. Everyone else was watching Luna, laughing, but Harry, glancing at the magazine on the floor, noticed something that made him dive for it. Upside down, it had been hard to tell what the picture on the front was, but Harry now realized it was a fairly bad cartoon of Cornelius Fudge. Harry only recognized him because of the lime green bowler hat. One of Fudge's hands was clenched around a bag of gold. The other hand was throttling a goblin. The cartoon was captioned, "How far will Fudge go to gain Gringotts?" Beneath this were listed titles of other articles inside the magazine. "Corruption in the Quidditch League. How the Tornadoes are taking control. Secrets of the ancient rules runes revealed. Sirius Black. Villain or victim? Can I have a look at this?" Harry asked Luna eagerly. She nodded, still gazing at Ron, breathless with laughter. Harry opened the magazine and scanned the index until the moment he had completely forgotten the magazine keys he had handed Mr. Weasley to give to Cyrus. But it must have been this edition of the Quibbler. He found the page and turned excitedly to the article. This too was illustrated by a rather bad cartoon. In fact, Harry would not have known it was supposed to be Cyrus if it hadn't been captioned. Cyrus was standing on a pile of human bones with his wand out. The headline on the article read, "Cyrus Black as he's painted, notorious mass murderer, or innocent singing sensation." Harry had to read the sentence several times before he was convinced he had not misunderstood it. Since when had Cyrus been a singing sensation? For 14 years, Cyrus Black has been believed to be guilty of mass murder of 12 innocent muggles and 1 wizard. Black's audacious escape from Azkaban 2 years ago has led to the widest manhunt ever conducted by the Ministry of Magic. None of us has ever questioned that he deserves to be recaptured and handed back to the Dementors. But does he? Startling new evidence has recently come to light that Cyrus Black may not have committed the crimes for which he was sent to Azkaban. In fact, says Doris Perkis of 18 Canthia Way, Little Norton, Black may have not even been present at the killings. What people don't realize is that Cyrus Black is a false name, said Mrs. Perkis. The mad people. Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to read page 192. Yeah. Bookmark, close. Peace out.